The Strain Season 3 premiere, New York Strong. Really enjoyed this episode. I'm glad that the show is finally back. A very interesting first episode, actually. I think it's pretty cool that we have a bit of a time skip. It seems like it had to have been like at least a couple weeks, but they do this recap in the opening, and they're like, oh, it's been like 23 days. And I was like, that's freaking insane to me. I thought for sure that it had already been like a month or something. So I don't know if it had been like 23 days since what happened at the end of the last season. So it's been basically another whole month. But I'm pretty sure it's been 23 days since the attack on the whole plane. And I was like, that's freaking insane. But this was I thought really cool. They clearly have a bit of a time skip here, and everyone's kind of separated a little bit. I mean, we have we lost characters in the finale. We have Zach, who's off with his still under control monster mother, who we actually get to see them at the end of the episode. We have F, who's kind of just waiting to figure out what the heck is going to be happening with my son, and he has the dream sequence early on. So he's at home because he feels that's where they'll end up showing up. So he's just staying at home, getting drunk every night. He doesn't have the woman that he loves anymore, either of them. And he also doesn't have his son anymore, so he just assumes, like he doesn't know the crazy situation that went down. So he kind of just assumes that things are bad, that he's been turned or just flat out killed. So he's kind of in just this crazy state of despair where he doesn't really give a crap. He does this thing, he just drinks at night and kind of just stays up. And then during the day, he goes and he makes more weapons. And so the way they kind of play everything out that's happening through the city is actually really cool, because he's making this weapon. It was working 100% last time, and now it's like 75%. So there's a lot of just talk in this episode about how they're getting smarter. Technically, we get introduced to what some new form. We don't really get to see it except for like that infrared thing, and it was basically, it looked like it was just a blob on the wall. And when the Navy SEAL turned and he shot it, it was just a little blob, and he shot it and he killed it. But I thought it was like, some new thing that they had, and it was just like this little new thing. So it's almost like little sticky grenades that like scream and mess with people, and apparently they can target specific individuals. Because when the guy was with his partner and it was just the two of them left, the one guy was screaming and stuff, and the main guy, he couldn't hear it, and he's freaking out. He's just stuck in this church. And then that dude gets split in half, which I thought was crazy, because I thought like, oh, his head exploded, and it's like, oh no, they just ran past and like just split him in two. So it was a pretty crazy episode where they talk about how they're getting smarter and they're getting faster, and now they have new creatures. If you watch the little extra thing where they show what's going to be coming up this season, they're going really hardcore with new tactics against the humans coming after them, because they had one that actually gets into like the CDC location, and it's like a kamikaze sort of thing, and it self-destructs, and it just shoots worms all over the place, and it just gets on random people. So it's like, man, they're changing their tactics, and they're huddling together, and things are just very different. So I'm excited to see where they take that, and it seems like somehow these creatures are getting even more dangerous, and I kind of like that idea. And so everyone's kind of doing their own thing. Fett is working with the Navy SEALs. F is kind of making this new weapon, or really continuing to make this weapon that he started up in the last season to kill them all off. And then we have, Setrakian, who is, he's going through basically his whole thing was, I'm going through the book in this episode. That was kind of his scene. So he's doing that. We have, there's so many names. I don't remember a lot of the characters' names, but we have like the old, like the ancestral dude who isn't under anyone's control. He doesn't have much in this episode either. His scene was like, I'm going to talk to the masters, and then somewhat argue with Fett a little bit, which was a cool scene, because Fett had like some crazy spider sense going, and he's like, ha. And then he stops, and I'm like, it's like some weird super senses going on. And he talks about having a blind spot, but I'm like, if you have spider senses, that I guess that doesn't really count as a blind spot. But they didn't have too much in this episode. It was really about F and Fett for the most part. It was the two of them and kind of what they're doing. But we see pretty much everyone. We actually get the scene of Gus and we see what he's up to. So he's kind of at home. He's kind of left the whole thing with the Masters after that failed plan in the last season. So he's at home and he's draining his blood and he feeds it to his mother. And we'll have to see what happens with him. I assume he'll be teaming up with the Silver Angel again at some point. So we don't get to see the Silver Angel in this episode. We also don't get to see Dutch. I really had to look this up on Wikipedia because because they were showing everyone and what they were doing. I still don't remember what she did, her final thing in the last season, but it said that she's still in the series. So I'm like, I was pretty sure. I was like, I don't remember her dying. So it seemed weird that they weren't together. Because if I remember right, she broke up with her girlfriend because her girlfriend was freaking out and wouldn't fight, but she felt like she still had to. So I really don't remember too much. Maybe her girlfriend did come out and she saved her. I really can't remember, honestly. Um, so we didn't get to see her in this episode. We didn't get to see Palmer either, but he's also in the little promo thing for what comes up throughout the rest of the season. And it seems like they might finally make him one of the actual creatures, because there's a scene, like the final clip and like the sort of promo for the rest of the season is that he has like blood coming out of his eyes. So I don't know if that means they flat out gave him a worm so that he could be under their control or just live forever or what. But it seems like that dynamic will be changing. He of course doesn't have anyone to kind of back him up anymore because they killed his girlfriend in the last season, ripped her freaking heart out. So sadly, she's not in things anymore. But I thought it was a really good episode, and they're really taking these steps, and they talk about how the government actually sent in the Navy SEALs. They're actually recognizing what's going on. And then we get a little further into it, and it's like, actually, we're only here for like a couple more days. The rest, New York's kind of been wiped off the big map to everybody else, so it's kind of just like, meh, sorry. And they kind of made it seem in the opening recap as well that the virus spread almost all over the world a little bit, is kind of how they made it seem. They were just showing stock footage of like riots in all sorts of places. And I'm like, oh, that's cool. And then it was like, oh, that's not really happening. I guess it's definitely how they made it seem to me, at least. Maybe I just was reading too much into the actual footage of clearly foreign countries, and definitely not New York City. But that didn't end up being the case. But they have talked about how they've expanded their reach and how they've been trying to push out, but they've kind of hit their limit as to how far they can really go while fighting these creatures. And now that things are getting crazier, we've seen they're getting smarter or getting faster and having new tactics and even new weird siren-based little blob creatures. It's going to be different now, and I'm very excited to see that. And then we have, as they go through everything that's happening, we get to the end of the episode, and we actually do see Zach and Kelly. And Kelly actually goes to see F, and I forgot about those little kids, to be totally honest. I completely forgot about them. So when they showed up, I was like, that's super creepy, and I completely forgot they even existed. So I was like, oh, this is awesome, because it creeped me out a little. I was like, I totally forgot about the feelers. So that was a really cool scene at the ending, and F gets surrounded, and then Kelly walks in, and it's like, all right, plain and simple, we want the book back, no big deal. And that's pretty much how it ends. So now we have to see F get the book, which, if you saw the promo, it seemed like he got the book. It almost seemed like he just asked for it, but that could have been after a whole struggle, and he went back to the lab, because he's just sitting there kind of flipping through pages like he knows what's happening in it. So I'm not 100% sure how things are going to play out, but as usual in this show, we have multiple, factors to everything happening, and now F is actually one of the kind of loose cannon type factors, because we always had like the team, and then we had the master and all the creatures, and then Palmer was sort of working with them, but of course, especially in the last season, he was his own thing. So now he's more under their control, so it's the masters, and now it seems like it's going to be F as the third party, and then the rest of the team, with them trying to figure out the book and stuff. And we still don't know what Gus is going to do, so he could end up on one of the three teams, or he could end up making like his own fourth team. But I feel like somehow he'll get back, he'll get in touch with one of the characters, and he'll be, back on the team with them. But with F wanting to save his son, he's going to be a bit of a loose cannon, and there's a lot riding on him. Like, they even mentioned it early on, like, you could teach anyone to do this little grunt work stuff. Like, I need you kind of at the base. And he's like, no, I'm not going to do that. And so there's going to be a lot there where it's like, hey, you can't be going nuts like this because you were literally the only person, because you won't teach anybody how to do this other stuff. So there are going to be a lot of interesting factors to him really doing whatever he can to get his son back. And I'm kind of excited to see how that plays out because normally, like I said, normally they've been a pretty tight knit team. They've had, a couple of little moments here and there, but for the most part, they were a pretty cohesive unit from the first season to the second season. And now it seems like everyone's kind of split up. We lost a character last season. F is completely by himself because his son is gone now. Fett and Setrakian, they're still kind of sticking together. And like I said, we don't know where Dutch is. So everyone's kind of just split up now and just either doing their own thing or just kind of trapped. Like Gus is kind of just stuck in the middle, like because he left behind what he was doing in the last season, and now it seems like he's just trying to figure out what is his next step going to be. So a lot of factors as usual, and I kind of like the change. Actually, I'm excited to see where they go with it because the whole thing has been like, oh, they're such a cohesive unit, and even with their struggles within the team, they've still always been a team. They go out, we're gonna go here, solve this problem, survive, come back. That's always been their thing, and now they're just kind of split up, and it's a little weird. It's like a broken family sort of thing. Everyone's just doing something or dead, unfortunately, in some people's cases. So I'm actually really excited for this season. Um, I'm not 100% sure what to expect. I mean, I assume, especially with them talking, kind of throwing it out there like, oh, for whatever reason, the weapon isn't working as well, so they're getting stronger or adapting to that. The new little blob creature thing, the promo thing where they're like, all right, we'll just send somebody in there and just blow them up so that they can do that. I like these new tactics and styles from the creatures. It's not just, go out at night, go crazy, and that's it. So we're seeing new elements. We have characters who normally, once again, are on the team, like F. They're out fighting on their own now, and F had a crazy scene when he was going to get gas for his car for the taxi. That whole scene, I'm like, man, he's really effing up right now. I mean, I don't know. I don't think he was drunk during that scene, but I was like, he's just like this whole 2 full seasons, and he's just like unloading in this stuff. It's like he's been fighting zombies for a day, and he's just like, I gotta shoot him in the heart because that's what kills him. Every single shot, I think, was like in the shoulder. I think the highest he got was like shooting him in the shoulder. It was like, oh, he was close, but he was way off. Excuse me. But that whole scene, I'm like, I know he's not gonna die, just like the very end. But it was just crazy. I'm like, he's missing all these shots. He had the cool little moment where he shot under the car, and then when he got, he drew it out after that. He just kept missing, and I'm like, he's got all these things coming after him, and he's just like shooting him in the chest and stuff. And I'm like, oh my goodness, he's been doing this for 2 seasons, and he's just drinking at night, not sleeping, drinking and staying up all night. You know, I'm assuming at some point he sleeps. We didn't see him sleep at all this episode. I think that was kind of the point. But just a bunch of craziness is going on. I'm like, man, he's going down there by himself to get the gas. I understood why he went down there. It made sense. But he goes down there. He gets jumped. He's trying to take on these things. I'm sure he lost the hose that he was using because he had to take off in the car. Which that was a really random funny thing. But when he's sucking the gas out, I was like, really? They had to do the scene where he like spit the gas up. He didn't see it like flowing through this long tube he has, which has a giant loop in the middle. He wasn't paying attention. He didn't see like, oh, the gas is coming out and going through this big loop, and it still got to his mouth, and he had to spit it out like in every other TV show ever. When they do that, I was like, he couldn't see that through the clear holes he was using. Like any other time, it's like, all right, it's like some random tube or like a water hose somebody might cut or something to use. But he had a completely clear plastic tube, and I'm like, he didn't see that coming through the loop or anything, and it got to his mouth. I was like, that doesn't even make a lot of sense, especially after all that time. If he was the one, because they have the scene where all the gas tanks are emptied. At first, I just assumed he was going to a random location to meet someone, and I thought that's why they let him into that area. It's like, oh, because he had the badge and stuff like they talked about early on in the episode. I thought he was going to meet the woman. I can't think of her name now. But then, they show the cars as he's driving past. I'm like, oh, they kind of siphon these cars for the couple of people that keep going here. And then it's like, oh, no, that's him siphoning all these cars off. And then it just made it, it kind of made it make even less sense to me, where it's just like, he couldn't see that through the clear hose. He's not experienced enough to the point where he sucks it out and then just puts it in, because you don't have to actually do it all the way to your mouth like that. They show that in TV all the time, but you actually don't have to do that where you swallow some of the gas. Like, you actually don't have to do it that way. But just that whole scene, like I said, it was just crazy watching him shoot at these things, and he's just shooting them in the chest and the shoulders and stuff. And it's just like, man, he's been doing this for such a long time. And even the part where he had the knife, I thought was crazy. I'm like, he's in this crazy situation, and he's not even thinking. Like, he stabs the thing in the neck, which was kind of cool as well. He stabbed it and survived. But, it had worms on it and stuff. And, they had this thing where he kind of, like, flicks it through the air to kind of wipe it off, which is also kind of a bad idea, because if he flicks it and there's a worm, it could just, like, basically fall flat down, just based on the science of that maneuver. But he killed this thing. It would have been so much smarter to just wipe it off on the creature's clothes and then it's done. But instead, he had the knife and he was just like, all right, and he threw it in the back because it had a worm on it. And I'm like, that, I thought it would come back in this episode, to be totally honest. I was like, that's gonna come back in this episode somehow. And I feel like they've already done the science on how long the worms live without a host body, but I don't really remember, so it might come back in a different episode. I really can't remember how long they survived without a host. But I was like, man, that was such just that whole moment for him, it just shows how far he's fallen. And it's like, that's really crazy. He lost the woman he loved, he lost his son, and now all he does is just drink. And all the drinking and, the focusing that he does at night, I'm like, even if his son came to him in the middle of the night as one of these creatures, he would have been destroyed, because he's so drunk. He has the blade or he has the gun. He's doing stupid stuff, because even at the end of the episode, the door cracks open. He gets up with the blade, and I'm like, is he not even thinking? The whole time, it's like, this is what he has been doing for, who knows how long. It's clearly been a while, if, that scene where he drives past the cars was meant to signify he was the one siphoning them. He's definitely been doing that for a while. Maybe it wasn't. Maybe it really was meant to just be random cars. But considering he went in there, it seemed obvious. Like, oh, he's been going here for a while. That's how it seemed to me. So all of that planning and stuff, and he's just still making little mistakes like this, even worse mistakes than he would have been beforehand, because now he doesn't have anyone there. He doesn't have the team there to say, hey, stop drinking. This is gonna get you killed. And he gets up with just a blade in his hand and walks to the open door. Little stuff like that is like, you really see how far he's dropped. And it's entertaining. It doesn't make him like a crappy character. It's just crappy to see him that way, because like, in any other situation it would just be like crappy writing. But for his character, because even from the beginning he always had like the drinking problem, it just makes a lot of sense and it works. It's like, oh, he's still a great character to watch, but it's also kind of sad and depressing, because he dropped so far, because he's kind of lost what little bit that he had left. He's lost all of that. So it makes a lot of sense. It just sucks to see, like, he's just shooting him in the chest, and he gets up and he walks to the door that opens up with just the blade, doesn't grab the gun and try to, aim with one hand, swing with the other, or anything. And it's just like, man, he's so messed up right now that he's just screwing up over and over again. But it's entertaining to watch, and maybe now that he knows he can get Zach back, he'll lessen the drinking. Like, I'm sure that's just going to be a part of his character for a very long time, if not the entire series. But maybe he'll lessen it up and be like, alright, I at least know he won't come to me as a monster, and now I know how I can, at least, they say they'll give him back if he gets the book, but I think we all know that some things won't be 100% true like that. So we'll see where all that goes. But I'm excited to see what they do with this character. Excited in general about this season. I really enjoyed this show since the first season, and things have just gotten crazier and crazier. They've gotten to the point, they did this last season, but that's what I was waiting for in the whole first season, was this city officially being destroyed. So that's what we have now, and I'm just excited to see where we go with this, and get the rest of our characters in the next episode. We're only missing, like I said, 3, and hopefully we get to see more of what Gus is up to as well. But enjoyed this one for sure. Of course, want to know what you guys thought about it, so please comment below. Let me know your favorite parts, your least favorite parts, and whether you've seen the little teaser that came after the end of this episode or not. I would love to know where you guys think we're headed for this season. We have, the little clues about them getting, the creatures getting stronger. We have, now F kind of on this mission to really get his son back now that he knows he won't come to him as a monster. We have Setrakian trying to decipher this entire book along with this other dude. He has some sort of name that I can't remember, and I think it's actually a pretty cool name, but I just can't remember what his name is whatsoever. We still have the Masters just doing nothing. They have a new guy in the exact same armor and everything, so they have a new kind of conduit character. I'm not sure if he's going to have another little army or how that's going to play out. Maybe they'll try to get Gus back and do it that way or something. I'm not sure, but I would love to know where you guys think we're headed for this season, and of course, what you guys thought about this premiere in general. So like I said, please comment below, let me know, and thanks for watching.